I see Cindy D's got first blood this morning, and this is not the first time. Good morning, everybody. It's Monday. I hope you all made it through the weekend, and hope you're looking forward to the week. I don't know about where y'all are, but where we are, it's looking rainy for the next couple days. And you know what? I can still shoot pictures in the rain because Photoshop is witchcraft. I love how Cindy D has commented several times recently. First thing in the morning, she says, "Good morning, everyone. I'm on my way to Rumble." That's awesome. And I hate to admit it, I still watch videos on YouTube too. As much as I want to get away from YouTube because they're a bunch of flipping commies, and I want to do more business with Rumble because I like them on principle. I'll admit Rumble still has a little bit of work to do on things, most especially on their UI. Their suggested algorithm, their interface is just, it's not quite as friendly. YouTube is still a good product. Uh, if you're not looking for, if you're not interested in the news or politics, things that are true as far as what's going on in the world, YouTube is still great for music channels, for movie reviews, and for things like your DIY self-help instructional type of stuff. The YouTube University, you need to know how to change, how to fix the your shower valve so they stop leaking. YouTube is the place to go. You want to know what's going on in the world and get some truth without a bunch of censorship and political bias, then Rumble. Okay, now in fairness, when I say political bias, because what we're about to talk about, I'm going to be biased. I'm going to be very biased. But when I say political biased, I mean from the platform itself. So on YouTube, there's a better than even chance that this video gets pulled down in the near future because I'm about to say things YouTube doesn't like me saying. For example, there is such a thing as an illegal alien. So let's take a peek at what's going on. I hope you guys enjoyed the thumbnail this morning. This for you boomers out there, this is a character from a video game whose name is Baraka, and I used the character because, quite frankly, the culprit in the crimes that we're about to discuss also is named Baraka, and nobody knows who the hell this guy is unless you live in Newark and are paying attention to local politics in Newark, New Jersey, then you don't know who Baraka is. But Ras Baraka is the mayor of Newark, and he was released after being arrested while protesting ICE detention facility he vowed to shut down. Now, many of you may have noticed, or maybe not, but the show today, the title says Democrat Mayhem, Newark Mayor arrested after assaulting ICE officers. Now, I didn't say that he was arrested for assaulting ICE officers, and that's an important distinction that has to be made. And we're going to talk about the psychopathy and hypocrisy behind why that distinction is important. Because Newark Mayor and New Jersey gubernatorial candidate Ras Baraka was released Friday night after being collared at the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention facility that opened on Tuesday, and which he has vowed to shut down. Baraka was released around 7:50 to cheers from the large crowd of protesters and swath of public officials, including Socialist Big Apple mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani. And that right there is also a part of the problem. You'll note there's a lot of these names in Democrat cities. A lot of the ruling class in Democrat cities are trending more and more toward foreign names. Okay? The right makes a mistake when they talk about illegal aliens voting. It is in fact the case that there's some of that happening. It is. There are some big voter fraud scams where the way it works is you round up a bunch of illegals and you feed them and put them on a bus and you take them and you give them fake IDs and they go in and they pretend to be someone else and vote on that person's behalf. Usually with something, usually we're talking about someone who, the person whose identity is being stolen You're talking about a couple of categories of people. That's where the memes about dead Democrats voting, like, my grandfather voted Republican his whole life, and he just started voting Democrat according to his obituary. Those types of jokes. But the real threat, as far as the political landscape goes, that we have to concern ourselves when we're talking about illegal immigration, and most especially illegal immigration, right, is the shift in the Electoral College. Now, and this is why Democrats are pro-illegal immigration. When you have legal immigrants, people who come here who make a plan, right, in their host nations, they make a plan, they figure out how much money they need to earn, what they need to do to make the move, and then they come over here and they do something like they come over on a work visa or a student visa, right? They begin their journey. They establish themselves in a foreign country because to them, that's what we are, right? They're moving to America. They come over here on a work visa, a student visa, et cetera, et cetera. They go through the process. They do the thing, whatever the job is or whatever the academic study field is that is required of them to maintain that visa while they pursue citizenship. And y'all, I'm here to tell you, most of those guys end up being conservatives. I don't know how many of you have friends who are immigrants who have achieved citizenship. I've known a lot of them. I've known a lot of immigrants who have achieved citizenship. And so I can say from personal experience anecdotally, but also from the polls and data, quite simply, people who come over here and become citizens tend, by a wide majority, to become conservatives, right? Sergeant Major points out New Jersey doesn't require voter identification, and that's a whole topic we could go down. But I tell you what, talk to somebody who is a Russian expatriate, right, or a Cuban expat, right? Go talk to somebody who's an expat from a communist or former communist bloc nation, and you'll be amazed. They talk about based. And they will also tell you that many of the things that you're seeing from the left today are the things that their parents and their grandparents saw happening as whatever communist regime took over in their country in decades past. So we look at this story, and Baraka is vowing to shut down. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Let me finish my thought there. So this is why the Democrats are so dedicated to illegal immigration, because it's actually much worse for our country than if these illegal immigrants were to get the vote. What they're doing, and you'll remember in 2020, there was a big fight over whether or not to include the citizenship question on the census, right? And I would say this was Donald Trump's greatest failure. His greatest failure in his first term was that he and our elected GOP did not fight harder to put the citizenship question on the census. When 2030 rolls around, before 2030 rolls around and the next census happens, we need this. This may be the most important issue for us to pay attention to for the next 5 years, right? We need the citizenship question to be on the census. So all these so-called sanctuary states, like New Jersey, for example, they have a large number of illegal immigrants. So large a number, in fact, that they have enjoyed an apportionment of additional electoral college seats and seats in the House of Representatives. It's not just that the sanctuary states get more reps and have reps in seats that should not exist, but because of the way apportionment works, those bigger sanctuary states like California that have some estimates range from 3 to 8. I think it's probably somewhere in the middle, around 5. They have about 5 extra electoral college votes and 5 extra House seats. But because of the way apportionment works, those conservative states that are not sanctuary states with the large illegal populations actually have fewer seats than they should. Right? So what you have is there's a total number of seats that is not a set number in the House of Representatives. Right? There's 100 senators. Each state gets 2, and that doesn't change. But across all 50 states, there is a number of representatives based on the total number of population, according to the census. And then that total number is distributed according to the individual states' populations. So because you have illegal immigrants taking up some of those, they're creating seats that shouldn't exist, and then they're outpopulating states where we're not cultivating large numbers of illegal immigrants. And so it's not just that California has extra seats, it's that other conservative states are missing seats that they should have. And it goes even further. It's even more sinister because remember, the Democrat Party is the party of the totalitarian, is the party of authoritarianism, is the party of communism. Right? I explained the other day when you look at the Overton window, the graph that the Overton window slides along, academia tries to teach us that you have communism on the extreme left and fascism on the extreme right, which is a psychotic fabrication. Fascism is Marxist. That's what Mussolini was. So on the extreme left, you have authoritarianism, centralized government, centralized power, communism, fascism, etc. On the extreme right, you have literal anarchy. You have no government at all. That's why the most extreme but still reasonable conservatives are extreme small government types. And when you have these concentrated populations of illegal immigrants that increase your representation, your state representation in the federal government, and increase your state's voting power in the general presidential election, you're getting that illegitimate concentration and distribution of power from the concentration of a non-voting base. So they get the benefit of the additional voter base without having the disadvantages of the additional voter base. That disadvantage being that these people don't get to vote because the illegals don't get a legal vote. Right? Remember, I said they do get to vote from time to time, but they're committing fraud. But by a wide majority, they're not voting, which means that they are essentially controlled by they're a non-voting constituency. So the House reps that represent those chunks of population, they're elected they have to compete for votes out of a much smaller voting block in order to win. So it saves them money, it makes their campaigns easier. The whole thing is just a disgusting power move. So what happened a few days ago is Mayor Baraka and let's see, where's the list? It came after Baraka and several New Jersey Democratic Congresspeople, Reps Bonnie Watson Coleman, Rob Menendez, and LaMonica McIver, showed up at the Delaney Hall ICE facility calling for the GEO Group-owned facility to be shut down. So, like I said earlier, the title of this episode is Newark Mayor Arrested After Assaulting an ICE Agent. And I said after assaulting an ICE agent because he was not arrested for assaulting the ICE agent. I'm going to show you the video in just a second. But we know we're right what we asked for is correct, the 55-year-old said to roars of support from those who had been chanting for his release. We ask them to obey our laws, to obey the policy and rules here in the city and state of New Jersey, and not to run roughshod over the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, the 4th, 5th, and the 14th Amendments. Everyone on this soil deserves due process, the gubernatorial candidate says. We've covered this a few times. The hostile foreign invaders that he's defending, they get due process. Okay? So there was a story recently, happened in Georgia actually, over by Columbus, I believe. A young lady just graduated high school. She got pulled over. She got pulled over by the police, and now she's being deported. And that's the headline, right? The headline is Georgia girl is being deported after a traffic stop. Well, that headline is obviously grossly misleading, because what happened is she turned right at a red light with a no turn on red sign. She got pulled over for the illegal turn, right? Justified stop. She broke the rules. She got pulled over for the illegal turn. The officer asks her for her license and insurance, right? Turns out she doesn't have a driver's license. She tells the police she has an international driver's license. Turns out that's also a lie. So she doesn't have a driver's license. She doesn't have insurance, because guess what? You need a driver's license to get insurance. And before you think, oh, well, maybe she's driving her mommy and daddy's car and they have the insurance on the car. No. Turns out her daddy is already in an ICE detention facility to be deported because he got caught without ID or insurance in a traffic stop a couple of weeks earlier. So the facts of the matter are, she had her encounter with law enforcement because she committed a minor traffic infraction, but that was enough for them to discover that she is driving without a license, which is a more serious traffic infraction, and driving without insurance, which I take personally, because let me tell you something, about 25% of the cost of your motor vehicle insurance is tabulated by the underwriters based on the likelihood that you are going to be in a car accident with an uninsured motorist, the vast majority of whom are illegal aliens driving illegally without insurance. Yes, the fact that 10% of the current U.S. population, nearly 10%, are illegal aliens is one of the largest factors increasing your car insurance premiums. Keep that in mind the next time they tell you no person is illegal. And when you hear that slogan, you're going to hear that one all the time from these sycophanted sociopaths. No human is illegal. You're right. No, they're absolutely right. No human is illegal. That is true. It would be unreasonable, unjust, irrevocably intolerable for the law to determine that the existence of a person is illegal. You're right. What actions are illegal, right? For example, marijuana is not illegal. The possession is. The distribution is. The use is. Right? Actions are illegal because we have a prohibitive legal structure, not a prescriptive legal structure. You outlaw activities, right? You outlaw activities that you don't want people to engage in. That was actually one of the bigger controversial points around Obamacare, is it was proscriptive instead of prohibitive. It didn't say, it's not a law that says you shouldn't do bad things. It's a law that says we will punish you if you don't take affirmative actions. It is the only law of that sort that doesn't have some sort of other qualifier attached to it, like car insurance. For example, you do not have to have car insurance if you don't own a car, right? Or if, maybe you live on a farm and you've got an old pickup truck that never leaves the property. Now, I drive my truck on the public roads. I have insurance on my truck, but just for you got a big farm, you've got an old pickup truck that lives on the farm, never leaves the farm, and that's the only thing it's there for. The law can't require you to have insurance on that vehicle, right? Because the vehicle is not entangled with the public interest. It is only entangled with your private interest on the property, right? So, you get out west to the giant, hundreds of thousands of acres of ranch, and they'll have several vehicles that they drive around only on the ranch that they don't have insurance on, because in those cases it makes less sense. So that's a very tangible consequence of the presence of all these illegal aliens. So let's take a look at the video. Here it is. This is the one. Oh, I've switched the tab. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know if this is the best angle. Oh, here's a good shot of it. Okay, so I want you to pay special attention to this woman right here in the red jacket. Okay, this is I'm going to turn the audio down on that one a bit. You can't hear him saying anything intelligibly. Pay special attention to this woman in the red jacket here. That is Representative McIver. There it was. Watch it right here. There, she throws a punch, punches the ICE officer, punches him again. Okay. You don't get as clear a view of Baraka throwing punches, but he's shoving and striking officers, and but he was arrested. He was arrested not for striking and attacking the officers. He was arrested instead. Damn it, I hit the wrong button there. He was arrested for trespassing, which, fair play. He was in fact trespassing, but he wasn't arrested for trespassing. He was arrested for trespassing. But so he was arrested for that, and he was not arrested for assaulting a police officer. McIver, to my knowledge, I looked for articles, I couldn't find any. To my knowledge, McIver has not been arrested. Now, if you or I did that, and God forbid, did it wearing a MAGA hat, I don't have to speculate, guys. I don't have to speculate. People who were not even present at the Capitol on January 6th, who were tangentially related to the activities there, who were tangentially related via membership in some organization or having made social media comments in support of the activity, spent years in jail, and they keep talking about due process. Many of them spent more than 2 years confined, awaiting arraignment, not trial. A lot of them went for more than a year without even being arraigned, let alone having their trials. And then they were threatened and bullied. They were tortured. Due process. Don't ever get confused and think that the Democrats are interested in due process. And I'll remind you, like the story of the young girl who broke the rules. She turned right on red. She was discovered through the course of asking for her identification to prove that she had a driver's license, which she didn't. And that led to her admitting, her saying the words to the police officer, "I am an illegal immigrant." Right? She knows she's an illegal immigrant. And I hate it for her. Her dad brought her over here when she was 4 But that doesn't, the pity story, the tearjerker story there doesn't change the fact of the matter. She's an illegal immigrant. Now, do I find her to be a much more sympathetic character than, say, her father or Akilmar Abrego Garcia? Sure. Okay. Fair enough. But where is the line? Right? You've seen the stories. Oh, well, now they're deporting U.S. citizens because there was a 2-year-old baby who left the country with her parents. Well, now they're deporting U.S. citizens. That's false. The child was not deported. Her parents were deported, and the parents chose to take the child with them. And fair play. If I was being deported because I'm a shithead, I would like to think that I'm at least a decent enough guy that I'm not going to leave my children to be wards of the state. Right? But so Trump gets beat up for that. But then we have another story where parents are being deported and they chose not to take their child with them. And so, of course, the headline is, well, Trump's breaking up families. So every time you hear them say a word, treat it as a lie. Because the thing that they're interested in is illegitimate acquisition of power, depopulation, and infanticide. Oh, and redistribution of wealth. Right? Essentially, their core political tenets, their core moral philosophy is murder and theft. And you constantly heard throughout the campaign last year and throughout the whole saga of January 6th, oh, Republicans call for violence. Republican rhetoric is violent. I challenge you to go on X, to go on YouTube, and search for a video montage of Republicans calling for violence. I couldn't find one. I found a few random examples, and they were very timid. There were things like, "Oh, Donald Trump called for violence on January 6th," and you've got the clip, and he says, "We're going to go and peacefully and patriotically protest and make our voices heard peacefully and patriotically." Right? And they say, "Oh, but it's a dog whistle." They all knew what he meant. They all knew that he meant burn the house down. Really? Because when we say Democrats call for violence, let's take a peek.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
It's in the First Amendment, you shitburger.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white.
Okay, so that's about 30 seconds of the. Oh yeah,
most of them radicalized right up to the right.
I thought
the biggest terror threat is white men, says the black guy, who, by the way, is married to a white man. I just showed you about 30 seconds. This video is almost 3 minutes long. They go on, and their calls for violence are explicitly that, calls for violence. Like when you got J.B. Pritzker the other day with this one. I believe I've shared this one before.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption, but I am now.
I'm calling for mobilization. Where do we hear that language? Or here's old Chucky.
We are mobilizing in New York. We have people going to the Republican districts, and we are mobilizing in New York. We have people going to the Republican districts and going after these Republicans who are voting for this and forcing them to either change their vote or face the consequences. We're
mobilizing. We're forcing them. Do what we want or face the consequences. Right? So when Donald Trump says go and peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard, oh, that's agitating. He dog whistled. He told them to go do a riot at the Capitol. You gotta jump through some loops to square that circle. But we are mobilizing. We're going to where they are. We are forcing them to take actions or face consequences. Violence is at the core, at the heart of Marxism. What's their primary slogan? Seize the means of production. Not produce something. Seize the means of production. Their core tenet is sit back, relax. You don't need to do anything. Other people will do it for you. Just wait for somebody else to accomplish something. Let somebody else build a prosperous world. Let somebody else create things that you want, and then get a gun and go and take them. That's Marxism 101. Seize the means of production. Wait until somebody else builds a thing, and then go take it by force with a gun. Incidentally, our first truly progressive, one might say socialist, president, Woodrow Wilson, gave us the income tax. What is the income tax? It is the seizure by threat of violence of the product of the means of production. If we were to abolish the income tax and the property taxes, right, until we've done that, we don't actually live in a free country. If you have to pay property taxes, you cannot be free. Now, there's a certain irony in me making that statement that I know a handful of veterans in the thread will understand, but I stand by it. As long as you have to pay property taxes, you cannot be free. Because by definition, if you are required to pay property taxes, then you have no choice but to engage with the economy, which means engage with the society and the body politic, in order to earn the wages which are required to pay that tax burden. Right? You cannot legally, in the United States of America, the land of the free, you cannot legally take ownership of a piece of property and then choose to live on that property and never interact with the outside world and be self-sustaining. Right? As long as there's a property tax, you do not have the option to buy a big chunk of land in the middle of nowhere, hunt for game, grow your own crops, hand pump a well, either put in solar or just don't have electricity. I know I'm not the poster child for it here, but believe it or not, it's possible to live without electricity. You can choose to go down to the river with a bucket and collect your water, right? Or to have a hand pumped well. I have a well, but it's an electric pump. And obviously I'm not doing the whole total farmstead. I mean, we still go to the grocery store, but if you can't choose to do that, but instead must go out and spend your time acquiring capital to pay property taxes, then you cannot be truly free. Then your freedom is an illusion. Because Big Daddy Government wants you to pay him rent on the property you own, or he will come and seize it with guns. A large part of the whole conversation about illegal immigration needs to start having an element of the discussion about property rights, private property, intellectual property. One of the biggest infringements on American prosperity is the disrespect for intellectual property that is shown to the United States by foreign nations, especially China. All right, guys, that's a half hour. I'd like to put in a little more time with you guys this morning. I'd like to get into this conversation a little more. But I want you guys to be aware and pay attention to the fact that multiple Democrat elected officials physically attacked, punched, and shoved law enforcement officers in a peaceful protest. Yeah, peaceful but mostly punchy protest. And none of them were arrested for assaulting the police. None of them were arrested for assaulting officers of the law. These same people that have been screaming no one is above the law for the last 4 years while they fabricated fallacious charges against Donald Trump without evidence. They're sociopaths. And one of their slogans, and they believe this intensely, there is no truth but power. And I cannot tell you how deeply tempting it is to play that game. You make the argument that might makes right. I'm right. Like a lot. I'm right like all the time. In fact, it's probably the most aggravating character trait that I have is that I am more often than not correct. We go to might makes right. I'll never be wrong again. So let's keep that in mind. And that's their slogans, by any means necessary. Right? They will engage in crime and violence. There is no truth but power. They will resort to violence. We've seen them do it before. We're seeing it happen again. No one is above the law unless they're on the correct side of the argument. So, BLM rioters don't get arrested. Democrat senators and congressmen don't get arrested when they're assaulting law enforcement officers, when they're burning down cities, when they're throwing firebombs at the White House and setting St. John's Church on fire. But no, nobody's above the law. So, y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.